This interesting looking bottle is the first release from Element Whiskey, which they call their Fusion. Let me tell you about it. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, this is the Fusion release from Element Whiskey. So let me get it into the glass and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Now, a few months ago, in all transparency, the founders of Element Whiskey actually reached out to me. So Rose and I, we were cycling the Ring of Kerry, very nice scenic part of Ireland, and Fionn from Element Whiskey actually reached out to me because they were planning on releasing a whiskey and just kind of wanted to get a few ideas about what kind of whiskies I like, what kind of whiskies I find that people like, and kind of a few industry trends. And that's because what they're hoping to do with their whiskey to try and stand out from the crowd a little bit is to do what they call open innovation, which is where they take feedback in from consumers, from reviewers, from other people in the industry, and they use that to try and iterate their blends and create new products that people actually want to kind of drink. So I was chatting to Fionn about it, and he wants to get to the point where they have a QR code on the back of the bottle which someone can scan, and they can kind of give feedback right to the creators and say, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, here's the tasting notes I'm getting, here's the tasting notes I'm not getting, here's what I want to see you do in future. And that all sounds amazing, but as they say, you have to walk before you can run. So we don't have the QR code on the back of the bottle yet, but we might see that in future. And they've actually got a really cool flavor wheel on the back of the bottle, which I'll put a picture of it up there so you can get a closer look at it. And it's kind of an interesting way of demonstrating what flavors they say are in the bottle. And so as they take on feedback, we might see that flavor wheel evolve because they've got other plans for other whiskies in future. They've got what they call the Lore series, which is intended to be their more kind of high-end, maybe single malt, single pot stills, and their X series, which is going to be focusing on cask finishes, interesting wines, interesting kind of flavors to impart onto whiskey. But this is their fusion whiskey. It's the kind of blended whiskey. It's meant to be a bit more versatile. You can drink it neat, you can drink it in cocktails, and as you can see, I have tried it a few times. I've tried it in cocktails, it works really well in an old fashioned, but what we're talking about today is a review of the whiskey as it is. So let's get into the details. This is a blended whiskey and it's made up of 5 different component parts. We've got 50% grain whiskey, another 35% grain whiskey, both aged in bourbon casks, first fill and second fill bourbon casks. We've got 5% malt aged in sherry casks, 5% malt aged in virgin American oak casks, and 5% malt aged in stout seasoned casks. So it's 85% grain whiskey, 15% malt whiskey, and the malt whiskey is switched out into 3 different components. Now, that's not really a problem for me because if you've watched any of my reviews, you know I do like grain whiskey. I think grain whiskey, if it's done well, it can have a really nice characteristic, can bring through a whole lot of really nice flavors, and it can be a good base upon which you can build nice flavors. So let's get into the nose on this whiskey and see how it builds those flavors. Cheers. Okay, immediately you're getting butterscotch. You're getting like a really nice, good caramel, buttery, kind of dense grain sweetness note. But you're also getting kind of a vanilla fudge kind of note, quite sweet in a different way. The caramel more deep and kind of low rounded. Vanilla fudge a little bit more like white sugar kind of sweetness coming through. There's also a little bit of kind of like apricot fuzz. I wouldn't say the flesh of an apricot with that sharp, kind of bright, almost tropical kind of note. It's more like that fuzz on the outside of the apricot where you get the kind of, you get a little hint of the fruitiness, but it's not a huge amount of fruitiness coming through. As I sit with it, I'm getting more of that creaminess, but maybe like almost a little bit like a banana custard kind of note. Nice and rich and rounded, but it's not like a very strong fruity note coming through. It is coming in at 43% ABV, which isn't down on the floor. That's always a good sign. It's not also super high though, so it's not delivering a huge punch in the glass. It is though delivering a nice, very strong base of sweetness with some nice creamy notes going through. So let's go in for the palate and see if we can find some other flavors. Cheers. Caramel, vanilla, really kind of nice and buttery, and again nice and rich. Like I said, grain sweetness always does, for me at least, have this kind of butterscotch kind of nice, rich creaminess to it. It's also got, I wouldn't really say like a chocolatey note coming through from the stout, almost like a creamy latte, like a coffee note, but tempered with a lot of like creamy milk coming through. So quite like, yeah, a bit of like a latte coming through, like a nice creamy coffee note coming through. As it sits, I'm getting a little bit maybe of oak, so I'm gonna go in for another sip and see if I can find that flavor. Cheers. Yeah, second sip round, got a bit more of the oak kind of coming through, a bit more of that oak flavor. Not a huge strong note, not like it's a strong charred, kind of really deep charred note coming through, just a nice bit of kind of oak spice coming through, and then more of that kind of banana note coming through that I got in the palate, and I mean in the nose, coming through into the palate. Maybe a little bit of orange coming through, not a huge amount again. I'm getting more of that kind of creamy, custardy, kind of banana note coming through on the palate. So let's go in again, but I'm gonna top with the finish. Cheers. Okay, as it's kind of sitting, as it's kind of fading, the oak spice, it's there, it's nice, it's present, and then it kind of fades away. The kind of fruity notes, that orange, the bit of banana, that kind of fades away. Left like with that kind of creamy coffee note I was saying, a bit of vanilla, the butterscotch. It's quite a creamy note. I mean, with 85% whiskey, being grain whiskey, you'd expect to be buttery, expect to be creamy and sweet, so that's definitely delivering into the palate, but nothing kind of new is coming up from the palate into the finish. As versatile whiskeys go, it's a fairly nice, versatile whiskey. It's a decent sipper. I know it goes well in cocktails, like I said. Tried it in an old-fashioned, works quite well. Just a nice, good kind of initial foray into whiskey from Element. But let's talk pricing. So this comes in at €49, which definitely has it in that kind of mid-range, kind of, you know, upper class whiskey. Not high-end whiskeys, but definitely punching in that mid-range category. And it's expensive, don't get me wrong, that's a high enough price, but when you look at other whiskies around there that are meant to be versatile whiskey, like R1.0, R1.0 can often be at €45, which is quite expensive, I think, for R1.0. And this being €4 more, you get one that's just as versatile, maybe a bit of a nicer, neat sipper, maybe has a bit more going on in the palate than R1.0 does, but you are also paying a little bit more, so I'll leave it up to you if you think that's fair. As for innovations, as for giving feedback for future blends, as I always say, grain whiskey is great if it's done well. If you kind of use it as a base upon which you can build, you can layer loads of flavors into grain sweetness. You get that butterscotch, you get the vanilla, you get the caramel, and you can accent it out with something different, with something new, kind of exciting and fun. Now, sherry and bourbon is a classic Irish whiskey combination for a reason. It gives great flavor, gives great depth, but it's been done like 1,000 times. So in terms of innovating something new, I know they've got plans with their X series to go into wine finishes and to go with things like that. And that's where I think I'd like to see this blend maybe go in a new direction. I mean, it's stuff we've kind of seen before, but if we see something with like a Marsala wine cask, or like Tokai, or like ice wine cask, something different, something a bit fun, maybe like apple brandy, things that are just a bit more out there, a bit more different, where you can layer flavors onto that grain sweetness and really deliver something new and something different, I think that would be a really cool whiskey to see. As for... almost knocked it over. As for what's in this bottle, it's a very nice, versatile whiskey. It's tasty. It does have a little bit more going on than some of those other whiskeys at that same price point, but you are paying a price premium, so I'd expect it to have a little bit more going on than some of those other whiskeys. Like I said, it goes well in cocktails, so I'm definitely going to have a few more cocktails with this as the base. Thanks again to the guys for sending me on to it. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go next, where they take the feedback on board, and if they do come up with something a little bit more exciting, a little bit more kind of exhilarating in future. Irish whiskey can be very, very tasty, so I'm looking forward to seeing how they maybe bring out those flavors in future. As for me, I put out whiskey reviews on Wednesdays, cocktail recipes on Fridays, and if you want to see more like that, make sure you scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.